buddies, the summer of 1970 was shaping up to be the best one yet.
I think I'm gonna ask Tanya out. Dustin's in love. Dustin's in love.
There was just one problem.
Where you going there, Dustin?
The town bully.
He bosses people around and picks on whoever he wants.
I'll take this one.
Come on, Nick, this is our pizza.
Now, a chance meeting.
I've seen you in our church many times, haven't I?
You're Mr. Sperry, right?
Jonathan Sperry.
With the most unlikely ally.
It's Nick. This is the bully we've been telling you about. Better hide the pizza.
Will change everything.
If your enemy takes a piece of your pizza, offer him two.
Welcome back to Boys Bible Study. It's us. We're here. We're back. Your favorite boys. And today we have a really special episode with a special guest, a film that is one that was like part of the reasons we started this podcast to begin with, one very dear to all of our hearts. But before we get into that, my name is Ash. I'm here today with
Scott
and Julian
and our special guest, the host of the new Bible study podcast, Trans Regret Snoopy Presents the Bible. It is Trans Regret Snoopy. Snoopy, hello.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us. I had a really fun conversation with you. What was that, last week? And I went on your show, and we talked about the Old Testament story of David and Jonathan. And I had so much fun, so thank you for that.
Thanks for coming on. I feel like it was a really in-depth, really interesting conversation.
It was so fun to just like talk shop with someone who's as into Bible study as I am. On our pod, you know, we'll talk about the scripture, but I'd say we're first and foremost a film podcast. So it's really fun to just like lay it out scripturally with you. But what brought you to start the show? And also, if you wouldn't mind telling our listeners a bit about the show.
Well, the show was actually kind of prodded on by a couple of friends of mine who thought that the novelty of the Trans Regret Snoopy character was very funny, and they thought like, well, there's got to be a way to monetize this or make it a intellectual property in some way, and I've kind of dragged my heels on it because I never really thought that I had all that much to say about anything, but this year was kind of like a very invigorating year for my faith. Like I kind of came back to God in a lot of ways, and obviously the Bible was a big part of that. So I thought, what better thing to talk about, and what more like unexpected thing to talk about from an account called Trans Regret Snoopy than the Bible.
The show title Trans Regret Snoopy Presents the Bible by Trans Regret Snoopy is just like is just a phrase I love to think about. I love to bounce.
It's really good.
Yeah. So good. What's next for the show? Can you give us a preview of anything we can expect in the coming weeks?
Well, I've got the first episode that I recorded by myself. I did today, and that'll be coming out next week. And today I'll be releasing, I guess today is the 1st of November. I'm not sure when this will be released, but I'll be releasing my episode with Ashley from the Nice People Show and Girls Chat, who I've admired for quite some time, and she was an amazing guest too. And I hope I get people on that are as enthusiastic about the work as I am, and I've even had people like that are in the clergy reach out to me and say, "Hey, I listened to the show and it was nice," and that like means so much to me. It's so amazing.
That's incredible. I love the idea of like the podcast as the contemporary missioning tool. I think it's just like such a fun and delightful way to introduce people to the scripture. So love the show and very grateful to have you on.
Thank you.
The movie that you watched with us today, like I said, a huge favorite of ours, The Secrets of Jonathan Sperry, 2008.
What a film.
What a film. Scott, would you give us some background on this film?
Sure. Just speaking of ways to introduce people to the scripture, they have some good suggestions in this movie. Well, first, the most important thing, I think, first of all, is that this is another Christiano Brothers movie that Julian brought to our attention. And it's a classic Christiano Brothers, probably top 3 Christiano Brothers.
Definitely.
They, of course, made Second Glance with David A.R. White's big screen debut.
It was just the poster. It was just such a good poster and a good name for a movie. I just felt like we had to watch it. It's one of those things when you're just scrolling through Christian cinema and you just see something that resonates with you.
Jonathan Sperry's got a good face.
But I'll tell you, I was watching this and this movie rips, and I watched Hobbs and Shaw right after it, and I was watching some Shaq highlights. So I'm in a big like bald man empowerment mood right now.
Bald Men Rock 2020. They stay winning out here.
I mean, I hate to be mean to the guy who plays Jonathan Sperry, but he really looks like a Muppet sometimes.
Absolutely. He has a marvelous face, I would say. Gavin McLeod. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah. He has that shape of mustache that's like inhuman.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like how, you know how they took they CG'd out the mustache from the guy who played Superman in Justice League, and then they put it on Jonathan Sperry. They like got a discounted rate because it was used from another movie.
Yeah, everything. I think like just a general theme of this movie, at least visually, is that like it's so like idyllic American to the point where it becomes uncanny. Like there's nothing particularly uncanny about the movie. I mean, it's just like, you know, Americana, like slightly sepia toned, set in 1970, you know, boys mowing lawns, eating pizza, things of that nature. But something about the casting, like the look of the characters and everything, is just like, I don't know. It kind of looks like one of those weird, like discount CGI Christian movies that we sometimes watch. I don't know. Very interesting aesthetically.
Oh, wow. Now I know where this guy's from.
Really?
Yeah, he was in Mary Tyler Moore Show and The Love Boat. He was like the captain of the boat in The Love Boat.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah. Because, I've never known who the guy who plays Jonathan Sperry is after all these, 2 years since the first time we saw this.
Yeah.
He should be in more movies.
Yeah, I guess he's like a Christian first, actor second kind of deal going on here.
Well, aren't we all?
Yeah.
His IMDb says he's in something upcoming.
Jonathan Sperry, too.
Oh, I hope to God.
I just realized that Jonathan Sperry is in Time Changer as well.
Wait, what?
Oh, no shit.
Yes. He must just not have the mustache.
A Christiano regular.
Yeah.
Wait, is he the one with the time machine?
Yes.
Holy shit, what a king. Oh my God, I love this
Incredible.
guy.
And he was in an episode of Touched by an Angel.
Okay,
Wow.
wow. This guy has been just like doing the Lord's work all over. Absolute king, absolute genius.
The cast is actually really good in this movie. The Robert Guillaume character is super, super good. And I was impressed with the chops, I thought.
Yeah, agreed. And I think the Christiano brothers are actually like pretty competent directors. They know what they're doing, and I think they do a good job casting usually.
Yeah, they've done so many movies, though. So, practice makes perfect. And there is perfection.
It's true. I would love if we all together could take anyone listening through this film and, give a brief summary. And along the way, we'll point out some observations. And there's even a couple scriptural tie-ins that I would love to talk about with you, Snoopy. So I guess I'll start by saying that we meet Jonathan Sperry a little bit into the movie. It primarily focuses on the activities of three boys who are like best friends in the year is 1970. It's very careful to tell you. It's the summer of 1970. We're hanging out with three, I want to say like 12-year-old boys. Their names are Dustin, Albert, and Mark. And, they're just doing their thing, getting into like neighborhood hijinks. They're extremely straight-laced, like pure of heart. And, we sort of meet them and get to know a bit about their lives.
The Christian version of 1970 is like Norman Rockwell 1950s.
Right. It's like 1945.
Yeah, I thought this movie took place right after the end of World War II. Another thing I noticed is we can go into this further, but there's like a lot of weird wardrobe moments. I don't know if anybody noticed. There's like a couple times where people just look like kids in the background kind of look like they just walked out of like a European nightclub. There's this shot at the end of the movie where Like the group of like the town's young men are all together, and literally every single kid is wearing cutoff jean shorts. And it was like they were all going to a Mac DeMarco show or something.
That's honestly one of the first things I noticed about the costuming was like, okay, I wasn't alive in 1970. I don't really know what people did and didn't wear, but it seems like cutoff jean shorts are a little bit anachronistic for like small town 1970s America.
Yeah, and even some of the kids were wearing like cut off khaki shorts too. Like every short in this movie was cut off.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think what really is compelling about this film more than anything is that there's elements of it that are very uncanny. Even though, like you were saying, Snoopy, great acting, the kids were great. But yeah, something about it just still felt very strange.
With the acting, I think it's all good except for when Dustin is sad. His sad face is very unbelievable. For some reason, that really stuck out to me this time.
His sad face is kind of just the default face he has when he's not speaking.
Again, similar to the Gavin MacLeod, who plays Jonathan Sperry. He has a marvelous face. Like God blessed him with a face that does what it does, and he shouldn't have to move it around in many ways. He should do what he does best.
Which is bring boys to the Bible.
Yes,
he's got resting Sperry face. So I get how do these kids get into Jonathan Sperry's life? I know that they're kids who bike around town and they hang out at the local pizza parlor / like soda place with the pinball machine and all the Italian flags that have giant slices of pizza embroidered on them. And what the main issue that these kids are dealing with is that Dustin, who I guess is like the leader of the group, I don't know, he's the focal point of this trifecta of young men, has a big crush on one of the 12-year-old girls who works at this diner. And he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know how to ask her out. He doesn't know how to tell her how he really feels about her.
Mm-hmm.
I think Dustin is first makes contact with Sperry because he's mowing the lawn or raking the lawn of Jonathan Sperry's neighbor, and he just like wanders over and he's like, hey, you're doing a really great job. Like, I've seen you at church with your mom or whatever. And then somehow that's like, hey, do you want to come inside for lemonade or something like that? Or maybe I'm skipping a step in the...
No, it's as predatory as it sounds.
Yeah.
There was a line that stuck out to me, like right when they start to meet with him, where he's like, let's meet next week. It has something to do with chocolate cake. And that line just, oh my God, in my head, just over and over. It has something to do with chocolate cake.
It's like alarms going off.
If you didn't know that this was like a Christian movie, you would think that it was like Mysterious Skin or something.
Yes. Okay, I was just gonna say let's address the elephant in the room about the secrets of Jonathan Sperry. It is a movie about grooming. It is a movie about a man who is very interested in young boys. That's like basically his driving motivation in his old age.
The Sperryfication of America's young man.
At the top of my notes, it says AKA the boy collector.
The boy collector. Yeah, and so it's just like, it's one of those things where like you're watching it and, there's a part of your mind that wants to be like, listen, mentorship is important for kids and like, this doesn't like, am I just a fucking freak or am I like indoctrinated by our sick society to like question Mr. Sperry's motivations? But it's so hard not to when there's lines like, something about chocolate cake and like, it's just like his fucking demeanor and like all the stuff he says and just like how deeply his goal as the movie goes on is to have as many young boys in his living room as possible. Like that's just like his stated objective. It's like, I mean, you cannot ignore that as like a subtext of this film. It's really wild.
Yeah, like think if this was the main character from Happiness instead, would he say anything different to like start this off? But his motives are pure. Or it's our minds that are in the gutter.
Right. They really are. And like that was the thing that struck me the first time I watched it. Like, this is so sweet. it's so, I mean, yeah, I think in our fallen world that we're in, like obviously our first thing that pops into our heads is like, this is a creepy like molester scenario, but like he genuinely just loves the Bible.
Yes.
Why he focuses his energy specifically on young boys is a different question, I suppose. But like really, he just wants these kids to read the Bible and to show them these like bizarre like lessons, like sending them off on wild goose chases and being like, oh yeah, there wasn't for anything for you to find anyway. Like it was, it wasn't there. And now you don't get chocolate cake.
Also, specifically, like young men without fathers.
Yeah,
God,
that's
I
the
didn't
motif of this film.
I didn't even make that connection.
Yeah.
Who are dealing with a lot of like unresolved trauma from either the loss of their fathers at a young age or like just the complete. You never see. I mean, two of the main children say like their fathers passed away when they were either young or before they were born, and then the other two main kids, you just never see their dads.
Right.
Is that a tie-in with like the Vietnam War or anything like that, do you think?
It does say Patton on the marquee. Maybe that's a sign. On the theater marquee early on, because that's how I knew this movie was 1970.
I see.
I was like, when does this take place? The 40s, 50s? It's like, oh, Patton, 1970.
But actually, so Snoopy, you brought up something that I really wanted to make a focal point of our discussion here, which is the ways that adults, Sunday school teachers, in this case neighbors or whatever, the ways that adults impart biblical lessons to kids. Because yes, a primary function of this movie is, these three boys' new mentor, Jonathan Sperry, teaching them about the Bible in, very sweet ways, but yeah, end up being these sort of like roundabout allegories for biblical truths. Let's take a minute and go through the different lessons that Mr. Sperry teaches these boys.
Lesson 1 might actually be Sperry sending Dustin over to try to mow Mr. Barnes' lawn, because that is like a love your enemy lesson in and of itself. He doesn't learn it until later in the film, but this like selfless good deed that Dustin thinks he's being sent off to do is like, it actually is in itself a biblical lesson to embrace those who have like done you wrong in some way.
Yeah, that's a main theme of this movie in general, we find out as the events unfold. And right across the street from Jonathan Sperry lives a man named Mr. Barnes, who is, doesn't seem like there's anything wrong with him, but he's kind of portrayed as this like, crotchety old man who's like mistrustful of people. And Dustin dutifully at Jonathan Sperry's orders goes across the street to mow his lawn. And, Mr. Barnes is just like, who put you up to this? Like, Dustin offers to mow his lawn for free, and Mr. Barnes is like, nothing in life is free.
Mow my lawn?
Yes, sir.
I don't need my lawn mowed.
No, sir, you don't understand. I want to do it for free.
For free?
Yes, sir.
Nothing's free.
He's very mistrustful even of this like, clean-cut like 12-year-old boy with a lawnmower. Thinks he's getting scammed in some way.
But when alone, he's deeply sad as well. My actual favorite scene, the most relatable scene in the movie to me, is just one shot, and it's of Mr. Barnes sitting down in his living room with a pitcher of water and one glass, and he's just like staring into the abyss. Do y'all remember that? It's like a less than 10-second shot. I was like, oh my God, that's like so relatable.
Yeah, there were undoubtedly very powerful moments in this film. There were a couple parts that got me kind of emotional. And yeah, I honestly, I overlooked that particular moment, but it did a good job at capturing the loneliness that he must have felt. Jonathan Sperry's continually trying to impart to the boys that people who seem unfriendly and things like that on the outside, it can sometimes be because they actually have a lot of pain within. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't love them or you shouldn't try to talk to them or befriend them or teach them about God, because you never know what someone's going through, So Dustin's mowing Mr. Barnes' lawn. Then Jonathan Sperry does this chocolate cake goose chase that we were talking about earlier. He sends the boys with different directions to find chocolate cake, and in doing so, they learn a valuable lesson.
Also, we should state that he is overtly like Christian, and it is like Bible study. It's not, at this point in the film, you're not like, it's no secret that they're studying the Bible and they're learning how to be good Christians. This is a very, very much like he's trying to, I guess, explain like God's love and like accepting Christ through these lessons. It's not like by the end of the movie, you're like, oh, it was about the Bible. It's just, I just wanted to make that clear for people who hadn't seen it, that it's not a mystery what's going on here.
Yeah, it's not subtle. It's very literal and blatant. Yeah. Yeah, he invites them over saying, bring your Bibles when you come for the chocolate cake.
Yeah. But even with that knowledge of knowing that the lessons have some sort of biblical meaning to them, it doesn't make them any less convoluted or sensical, right?
So do any of you understand the lesson here today?
No, sir, not really.
Well, what if finding this cake here represented finding heaven? How come Albert was the only one who found it?
Because he had the right directions.
Yes, that's right.
So why'd you give me the wrong directions?
I still don't understand what the point of the chocolate cake is.
I think it's like directly excluding people from the kingdom of heaven based on their faith. It felt like, as somebody who's like kind of more of a I don't know how much you want to talk theology, but
please,
as somebody who's more of a universalist, like I found that scene kind of distressing because it was just like, yeah, well, you know, you have to have the right instructions to find the chocolate cake or to find the note that leads you to the chocolate cake or whatever, and the right instructions are the Christian Bible, you know, specifically the Christian belief in Jesus, and there's no other way. And that kind of bugged me a little bit.
Interesting. And I think I said this on the pod before too, but I was under the impression growing up that if you don't get the instructions, then you still go to heaven. It's not really on you then, because you were not put in a position to make that decision.
What do you think about that, Snoopy?
Well, I think like canonically, it's hard to. There's a lot of language in the Bible itself that's like specifically like this is the only way that you can do this is if you believe in Jesus and you follow Jesus. But again, like there's also all of this forgiveness language and all of this language of inclusion and, you know, bringing people into the fold rather than excluding them. So yeah, I find that kind of hard to swallow. I think that in general, like not knowing is perfectly understandable given the world that we're in and the multiple faiths that there are, and ultimately, yeah, I mean, it does come down to a theological argument, though. There are a lot of people who believe that that everyone gets into heaven regardless, and that hell is like a facade. There are some people that think that if you're good, you get to go to heaven. Some people think that hell is just separation from God and from Jesus, and that in and of itself is eternal torment. But then, you know, I think the belief that this sort of universalist idea of like, well, we're all included, you know, we're all welcome into this kingdom, is one that like it's very, very popular now. And I don't know how much that's changed in the last couple of decades, but it's obvious that whoever wrote this had very strong feelings about there only being one path in, which excludes the Jews, excludes the Muslims, anyone that follows any kind of faith, even if it is an Abrahamic like faith, is specifically excluded from heaven.
And specifically going to hell, which that I believe that's Mr. Sperry's next lesson.
Yeah, and that's a big theme in Christiano films, is that it's not only just like you have to be a Christian to get into heaven, and they present that sort of lesson in a pretty wholesome, family-friendly way sometimes. But then you'll always have that moment in the film where they do like say like, no, you are gonna go to hell, and this is what hell is like. Like it's not as merely like you're not going to get into heaven. It's you're going to hell.
The pit of fire.
Yeah, and that lesson is overt in this film in the best scene of the movie, like undoubtedly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is.
The incredible scene where Jonathan Sperry takes the boys to the graveyard. And like, I'm definitely going to pipe in this audio, but Julian, I'd love it if you would give us your best Jonathan Sperry.
All right. I'm blushing. I am in agony.
He's like,
why didn't you tell me about Christ?
All right. Listen.
I don't hear anything.
All right. Stand closer to the tombstones. And listen very carefully now.
But I'm still not hearing anything.
Put your ear to the stone. Why? Why didn't you tell me about Jesus? Move closer. Why? Why didn't you tell me I needed the Lord in my life to go to heaven? Keep listening. I am in agony in this place.
he's having the kids listen to the tombstones. You know, he's saying, you got to come to the cemetery because, and this is a verse that he states that I actually think is really cool. I never was familiar with this verse. The one about how Ecclesiastes 7:2, I have it here, English Standard Version. It is better to go to the house of mourning than go to the house of feasting, for this is the end of all mankind, and the living will lay it to heart. So he literally takes the boys to a cemetery to impress upon them mortality and to directly challenge them, or blame them. I mean, just in the general sense, for the fact that a lot of those people, perhaps in that graveyard, are in hell, like literally in hell. And he's holding his head up to the gravestone. And he's going, I am in agony. Really, it's a crazy scene.
That was it was haunting. It was like very morbid, especially given he says that he goes there all the time. And later we learn why that probably is. I don't know what your policy on spoilers is, so I'm going to hold off on the actual detail there. But it also this line that you brought up, the Ecclesiastes 7:2-3, it's like sorrow is better than laughter, for sadness has a refining influence on us. What a powerful passage, but also are they really living that out? Because most of the time it seems like their whole idea of the Bible study is we'll make it fun. We'll have hot dogs.
Right.
We're going to have chocolate ice cream.
Right.
Lemonade.
I really thought it was funny this time that, this lesson is brought about by the kids having an encounter with their bully at the diner?
Yeah.
He takes over
at the pizza place,
pinball machine.
So here's
one of the
kids.
kids.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, just speaking of the diner pizza parlor thing, they keep calling it a diner in the movie, but it is obviously a pizza parlor,
right?
Because there's pizza stuff all over. Did that bother anybody else, or was I the only one that was it's not a diner?
Well, it's confusing because there is a diner that they go to because that's where Tanya, Dustin's crush, is. So
Wait, I thought she worked at the pizza
That's the same
place.
No, they're different places.
Oh, for God's sake!
Really?
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay, that was going back to what I was saying about how this movie is uncanny. Like obviously it's a movie, it takes place on sets and stuff like that, but the way this film is shot and presented, everything feels like a shadow box. It feels like they're in a zoo made by aliens for people to think that they're in the year 1970.
This movie takes place on another planet, actually.
Yes. Yeah, it's some Philip K. Dick type shit.
Yeah, it's I just thought it was funny that they have that encounter with their bully, and then they tell Jonathan Sperry about it, and he takes him to a graveyard, and it feels like the lesson is going to be that their bully is going to die and go to hell.
Yes.
I mean, in reality, the lesson is to turn the other cheek, I guess, and kill him with kindness, essentially.
Right.
He has specifically a pizza line about turning the other cheek.
Oh yeah, he says.
Oh yeah, if your enemy. I also like how he refers to the bully as their enemy.
Yeah, it's so good.
He says if your enemy takes a slice of pizza from you, offer him two.
I actually kind of dig that. That goes.
I mean, that's Sermon on the Mount right there. I mean, that's he even says Matthew 5, but then the fact that he turns it into a pizza metaphor is very funny.
What's all that supposed to mean, Mr. Sperry?
If your enemy takes a piece of your pizza, offer him two.
And pizza plays a major role in this movie.
Huge motif.
Yeah, big CP vibes in this one.
Right. Yeah.
It's look, we didn't make the movie. Okay, we're just telling you what's in it.
We're just the messengers. Yeah, but other just like scriptural points in that scene, like you were just saying, Matthew 5:44, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Luke 6:29, to one who strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also, etc. So yeah, he's wrapping a bunch of things into one, but I would say that some of the primary themes of this movie are, mortality, the necessity of missioning to people due to inevitable mortality, but also loving your enemies and appreciating the people who might not be so nice to you because they have their own struggles too. And the consequential graveyard scene really just like brings it all together in a very stunning way.
They're all in agony, screaming in agony. Listen to the tombstones, is what he said.
Just an old man just leaning close to your ear and like loudly whispering, I am in agony. It's like, Jesus Christ.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah, and actually this kind of made me want to discuss anyone here who, did any kind of Bible study or whatever as a kid, whether it was on your own or you were forced to. Do you remember any like strange like allegories or like Sunday school type lessons of the Jonathan Sperry variety that you remember getting as a kid? Any that like made an impression or just stuck in your mind?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, I was kind of racking my brains. I can't remember like if this was like based on a specific verse or not, but like I remember there was like a youth pastor at my church growing up who like she did this like really bizarre like kids sermon that like fell on its face, where she like, I mean it was just like fine, but it was just like the way she performed it was just really strange and awkward, where she just like dressed like a total like slob, like she like wore all these like disheveled clothes and like put like gel in her hair to like make it look all messed up, and like wore like a fake nose ring or something. I can't remember. And she basically, the point of her lesson was that like it doesn't matter what you look like God loves you and you're welcome in the church. I don't know why. I just like I think about that one from time to time.
What was that silent? That was the silent movie we watched.
Oh, The Good Book?
Oh,
yeah. Remember the lady went into the church and she was like shelterless and they accepted her.
Yeah. They gave her different clothes that didn't fit right instead.
It just seems like, there's better ways to get that lesson across than just dressing.
Maybe. I mean, people said the same thing about the parables, though. I mean, Jesus was always,
That's
disguising moral lessons and other things, So
and people say the same thing about the chocolate cake parable, too.
Yeah, the chocolate cake one was funny because I thought that, like, if you're that age and probably really hungry all the time, if I remember correctly, if this old man I just met was withholding the chocolate cake from me to like tell me some weird allegory that I didn't even know the Bible verse connected to yet, I would be like, okay, well, I'm going to go. Or I don't know. But instead they were just like totally bought in, like, oh, that's a good point. Just like immediately accepting and like, yes, I will read my Bible more.
Wait, Snoopy, did you go to Sunday school when you were young?
I did. I don't remember a lot of it.
Sure.
So I didn't want to chime in because I didn't really feel like I had an anecdote that was particularly helpful. I remember there being a lot of like workbooks and like there'd be like a quiz that you'd take at the end of this lesson, with the like cartoon Jesus. And it was, I mean, it all feels kind of so different to me now in hindsight because I wasn't a part of like church at all for so long that I'd kind of like remembered it as this like, oh, it's like this indoctrination, this just factory where they just tried to pump out people without original thoughts about faith or whatever. And in hindsight, it was just like the most innocuous, like the nicest and most whitewashed like possible way to teach kids about faith was just like, We joked on the episode of the Bible study pod. We joked about how Jonathan and David were very good friends,
Right.
and that was like the crux of like all of the messages that they would teach us in Sunday school was like, it's good to be nice.
Yes. No, it's the Jonathan and David thing. I think I mentioned this on the episode, but like for some reason I distinctly remember like coloring a picture of Jonathan and David. It was just like 1 week in Sunday school where it was like, we were probably going through the story of David. David kills Goliath, of course. Kids love that one. And then I remember distinctly like covering a picture of Jonathan and David standing next to each other. And it's like, these guys were such good friends. Amazing. Yeah, I don't know. It was just very like, again, something that for some reason stuck in my head, even though it was just like a small moment of my Christian education.
I mean, that makes me think like how Sperry is bringing these lessons to these kids is very not Sunday school like, right? Because he's not sugarcoating. I mean, literally, there's sugar in like every scene that they talk about food. But he's like not sugarcoating a lot of these lessons, like where he brings up James 3:8 or 3:4 or something like that, where he says the tongue is a pit of fire that spews poison or something like that. It's like, wow, I don't remember hearing that in Sunday school when I was young.
The scripture says the tongue is a fire full of deadly poison.
Yeah, he's bringing a spoonful of sugar to go with your harsh medicine.
Totally. But so he continues to do these biblical lessons. Also, Mr. Sperry does have a lasting impact on the town bully Nick, who is maybe a year or two older than them.
Might be my favorite scene.
Oh yeah, tell us about that scene, Julian. I love that part.
So after their lesson at the graveyard, they go to the pizza parlor, or is it the diner?
I think this one's the
pizza parlor.
Okay, they go to the pizza parlor with Jonathan Sperry, and there's the three young boys and Jonathan Sperry sitting at the table just shooting the shit. And in comes the bully, who just sees an old man and starts ripping on him. But his
legend,
like this is like a 12-year-old kid just starts talking shit to this like 80-year-old man. And the thing that kills me is his insult is, don't you have a nap to take? Because I hear old people take a lot of afternoon naps.
Wasn't it past your nap time, Grams? Because I heard that all old people take afternoon naps.
So
Bart.
Got him.
Yeah. And Jonathan Sperry like just turns right around and is like, your dad is dead.
He owns him with knowledge of his dead dad.
I mean, he's a lot nicer about it, but that's the main thing.
You're Nick Myers, right?
Yeah? What's it to you?
Victor Myers' son?
Yeah? So what?
I know he passed away when you were quite young, so if you would ever like to hear more about your father, feel free to drop by my home for a visit.
Yeah, and this leads to an opportunity for Mr. Sperry to get his hooks into yet another young boy. He's like, oh, by the way, my door's always open. So Nick goes. They have a heart-to-heart about how, Mr. Sperry can see that Nick is really hurting, and, he probably doesn't get a lot of attention at home because his mom's always working and his father passed away. And that might lead him to act out at others. And this causes a big impression on Nick.
I know it was tougher on you growing up than most young men. But son, that's no excuse for your behavior. If your father was still here, I'm sure things would be a lot different for you right now.
Yeah, what makes you say that?
Because you wouldn't have to go around and act like a bully to get attention. You would have had your father here to give you the proper attention, I'm sure of it.
Yeah, he tells Nick that he knew his dad well when he was still around, and that his dad came to Christ and everybody thought it was a phase and he was going to, grow out of it someday, but he stuck with it until his passing, and he forgave everybody, or he asked for forgiveness from everybody who had wronged, and Nick's mom just couldn't accept. What is it? She couldn't accept Nick's father's like born again Christianity, and she left him, and then he passed away.
Which I thought this was the actual most messed up part of the movie, because he's just saying, well, it's not, because Nick's like, oh, my mom said he was like a bad guy. And then Jonathan Sperry, who was not married to him, says, oh, no, that's just because he became a Christian and she couldn't accept it.
Right.
He just totally throws his mom under the bus. And it's like, well, you don't
That
know what the
bothered me so
relationship
much.
was for years and years before that. And just because he became a Christian doesn't mean he put in the work with his own family to make that right. That's not something you can just pray to God once for to fix. You have to put in real work.
Yeah, and also like the fact that he felt the need that he had to go around apologizing to a lot of people makes me think that his dad was a really mean, bad person.
That's a good point.
Because I don't know, I feel like the average person who's not like an abusive person doesn't have to go around apologize, have a long list of people they need to apologize to once they come to Christ.
Yeah, it almost sounds like it's a 12-step thing. Like, was there a drug addiction or something that was related to that? Because that's like one of the steps of like AA and NA, right? You have to go make amends with everybody that you wrong.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Yeah, so John Sperry just throws Nick's mom, Nick's single mother who raised him all by herself, under the bus.
He stops at the end of the conversation and he's like, I think coming here was a mistake. And that line made me laugh out loud.
God, that kicks ass.
Yeah. But, however, he comes back shortly thereafter and asks Jonathan Sperry what he's got to do.
And one of the next things that happen is Jonathan Sperry includes him in one of his stunts, his allegorical stunts.
This one was so stupid. This is pissed me off even more than the chocolate cake.
Well, tell us about it.
So he puts a $5 bill, which is like a fucking $1,000 back then, on a picnic table in his backyard, and he tells the three boys that they need to form a chain where one kid always has to be touching the tree that's like 20 feet away, and they should be able to use that human chain to reach the $5 bill. And if they can get it, then if they can do that while still touching the tree, they can keep the $5. But he keeps like implying that this is possible with some sort of configuration with just the three of them. And then when they're doing it and it's very clear that there's no way that they can be touching the tree and get the $5, he like signals for Nick to come out from around the front of the house to come out and like help them. And it's just fucking so annoying to me.
And if you're still interested in that $5 bill, there's one more person here to help. So perhaps now there is a way.
Well, had they gone arm to leg, it would have actually worked. They wouldn't have needed him.
That was the other thing. Is like they could have tried that before they just gave up. And just the fact that Jonathan Sperry is like, oh, you should be able to do it. You can do it. And then he's like, oh, no, actually, you need a fourth person to do it. It's just, I don't know. It pisses me off. Like, it's like somebody thought they came up with a clever riddle, but they're like, oh, actually, you had to be the person who came up with the riddle and know that the secret rule, it actually only works if you change the rules halfway through.
Yeah.
Fucking Sperry. I love him, but
it's a terrible riddle, but it's a good allegory about like teamwork and friendship, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was the thing, is like the lesson is there's seems like there should be a much better way to do this lesson. Why is he always, what does he just sit around in his house coming up with this shit? And there's like no, and he doesn't test these ideas on anybody.
Did any of you think that they were going to pray about it and then their arms would grow before our eyes?
Or like a little gust of wind blows the $5 over to them.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he spends all week thinking of the next lesson to impart on his posse of young boys. And this is because in the 70s they didn't have podcasts yet. So the only way to mission was to, instead of spending all week editing your episode, you had to spend all week writing like fake scavenger hunt for chocolate cake, But yeah, to what you were saying, Julian, I think it's interesting that multiple times he deploys the fact that he intentionally misleads the boys, like knowing that they're going to come back all frustrated. Like when he sends the 2 kids out to like get a note that wasn't there. And it's like and then he comes back and he's like, but why didn't you find it? And it's like, I get that it's harmless and he's teaching them a lesson and it works. And I mean, like, that is a pretty powerful way to like speak to kids, is like to put them in a situation that is like unfair, and they get to experience that briefly for themselves.
Yeah. I guess the lesson is that we are all just God's playthings.
We are all the playthings of a fickle old man in the sky. Yeah. But, so, with Mr. Sperry's help, Nick turns away from his bullying ways. He completely abandons his like bully friends and starts hanging out with the fucking nerds instead, which I would never be caught dead doing, but and they'll get closer. I mean, is there anything really else that we should include before we wrap up the story?
Well, there's 2 other storylines that are going on that are kind of important, I guess, and we touched on the one about mowing Mr. Barnes. Is it Mr. Barnes?
Yes, Mr.
Barnes.
Mowing Mr. Barnes' lawn. So that's sort of like a mystery going on there. Perhaps a secret of Jonathan Sperry's as to why he wants Dustin to be to mow Mr. Barnes' lawn for him, and why Mr. Barnes is so reluctant to accept Dustin's free help. But there's also the storyline, and this is like half of the movie is about this, which really annoyed me this time around, is about Dustin trying to figure out how to write a love letter to the
12-year-old waitress.
The 12-year-old waitress, or like whether she likes him or not. The entirety of like the kids' interactions with each other are about Dustin and this girl that he has a crush on, which is, I mean, I kind of felt that way when I was his age and had like crushes on classmates and stuff, but it does not make for riveting film.
Sure.
I thought that the way that they wrapped that story line up, though, was really nice.
I agree.
Oh, yeah.
And it tied it all together.
Yeah. I mean, there's the big payoff there, which I felt like we should talk a little bit about how he, works up the courage to write this love letter to the waitress, and then he leaves it under his drink with the tip he leaves for her after they're done eating there. And she gets called away from that table, and somebody else cleans it up, and they pick up the note, and I think they throw it away or something. Whatever happens, She doesn't get the note, and then she goes on vacation for like 2 weeks, and so he doesn't see her, and it's kind of like torturing him as to what she thought about the note. And then when she comes back, he works up the courage to just straight up ask her about the note, and she says she doesn't know what he's talking about, and he's continues to be in agony over this girl that he has a crush on. It's all very monotonous and boring.
But he does end up writing another note that says something different than what we think it's going to say.
After he's been totally Sperryfied, he writes another note and leaves it for the girl, and it's a note that you think is going to be about how he has a crush on her, but it's actually about how he has found Jesus Christ and that she should find him too. The ultimate throuple. Him, her, and Jesus.
Dear Tanya, I think you're a very nice girl. I also think you're cool. I wanted you to know that something great has happened in my life.
I started reading my Bible every day and praying to the Lord. I've come to realize that I need Jesus in my life, especially if I want to go to heaven. So I just wanted to encourage you to start reading your Bible in the Gospel of John. I think it will help you too.
And as they're walking out of the diner/pizza parlor, after he leaves that note instead of the first one, they're like laughing to each other, like what a good gag that we just pulled on her. Like, I don't know if anybody else noticed that, but they're like high-fiving, like, yeah, we got her good.
It's like proselytizing pranks.
as an own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was really powerful when she was reading the note and like, yeah, she's expecting it to be one thing. And then, yeah, her eyes start getting far away as the note continues. And it's like, I've been reading my Bible and, blah, blah, blah. And he's all of a sudden she's like looking longingly out the door. I mean, as the end of the movie reveals, they never ended up dating. But I've got to say, I mean, what a way to get yourself into someone's heart. I mean,
they did reveal also that she started reading her Bible. So
right. So it worked.
Yeah.
But I'd say like, the big boys Bible study takeaway from this film is, let's say, you're in love with someone, you have a crush at the woman on the malt shop who sells you a Coca-Cola for like 2 cents or whatever. Try to get her into Christianity. I'd say that's just like a little romance tip from your favorite boys over here.
Well, and earlier in the movie, Mr. Sperry says he tells an anecdote to Dustin about how he had a crush when he was younger, and then he ended up being embarrassed because he wrote a note to her, but it fell on the floor of the class, and then the teacher read it out loud. And his takeaway from that was he should have prayed to God first if he should send her a love note or not, because then it would have saved him the embarrassment, because God would have let him know that they're not supposed to date.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe God would have wanted him to go through this life lesson. I mean, you don't know how God works. This part of the movie made me think, I don't know about you guys, when I was a little kid, I would not have told any adult like who I had a crush on. Like I would have found that concept just completely mortifying. Still basically do to this day.
Especially an 80-year-old man.
Yeah. Just not my girlfriend.
Yeah, like talking to some neighbor down the street is like, yes, being in love is very complicated. Like talking to like 12-year-old boys.
Yeah, and that's another thing that is so prevalent in Christian movies is like childhood love is like the most pure and ultimate love you can have, like the love between two children. And it's like, it's the idea that like first love will be your last love, and it will last for the rest of your life. And that no character will ever be like, yeah, it's all right, you'll get older and meet somebody else.
Right.
You'll probably meet somebody else in like a year or something that you have a crush on.
Right.
Or even sooner. Like nobody is ever like, oh, that's what a silly thing. They're always like, it's always like Jonathan Sperry, like, love, it's such a mystery. And
I mean, Dustin's mom reveals that she and Dustin's father met when they were in high school. So, yeah.
And he's still got like 6 or 7 years.
Right. Well, that's the other thing too. Yeah, middle school sweethearts. So, that storyline is resolved. I think it's about time we say that. So by the end of the movie, Mr. Sperry's boy collection is grown larger and larger. He has at one point literally like 25 boys in his living room.
A room full of boys.
Yeah, truly. And like they come out the house and he's like, all right, I got next time I got 4 hot dogs for everyone. Bring your appetite. And he's like throwing hot dogs at like a room full of hungry 25 hungry 12-year-old boys. But unfortunately, Jonathan Sperry passes away
suddenly without warning.
Right. And he's portrayed as being old in the movie, but still, we didn't really see that coming. And
it was shocking. Like, you knew that something like that there was going to be some loss, right? There was too much being built up for there not to be like a loss. But the timing of it felt kind of abrupt.
Sure.
Yeah. They were running out of time in the movie, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, it was really abrupt though, because Dustin was just going to Mr. Sperry's house like usual, and then it's like, whoa, what are all these people doing here in these cars and everything? And we all find out with him, oh, he's dead.
And obviously, this is very tough for the boys. They go to his funeral. Mr. Barnes is at the funeral as well, kind of shying away from everyone else. And, there's a period of mourning. Everyone's reflecting on how good a Christian Mr. Sperry is, which is absolutely true, according to the events of the movie. And we get a very climactic surprise visit. Actually, Mr. Barnes, the neighbor from across the street, he shows up to Dustin's house. And the whole movie, Dustin's been just, sort of ingratiating himself to Mr. Barnes by mowing his lawn, even though Mr. Barnes claims to not want that. But at the end of the movie, Mr. Barnes actually comes in and says, thank you. You're such a nice boy. I now know that it was Jonathan Sperry who put you up to doing this. And would you please keep mowing my lawn? I'd pay you for it.
Dustin, I wanted to ask you, if you still want to mow my lawn, I'll pay you from now on.
You don't have to pay me, Mr. Barnes. I enjoy mowing your lawn and talking to you.
I know it was Mr. Sperry put you up to this. And I can't let you mow my lawn anymore unless you let me pay you.
And it becomes the beginning of a friendship. But at this point, it's also revealed that, Dustin's mom says to him that, did Mr. Sperry ever tell you how his wife died? And Dustin's like, no. And she was actually killed by a drunk driver in a car accident. And that driver was Mr. Barnes.
Dustin, did Mr. Sperry ever tell you how his wife died?
Yeah, she died in a car accident.
And did he ever tell you how it happened? That accident was caused by Mr. Barnes. He had been drinking, and he was the one driving the other vehicle.
So this whole time, Jonathan Sperry has known that this man was in some ways responsible for the death of his wife, which must have hurt him tremendously. But he was still going very out of his way to mission to Mr. Barnes and try to, get him to open up and eventually find God. It's revealed at the end of the movie that was like a grand act of selflessness and loving your enemy and forgiving him. So very, very powerful note to end on.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to... I was just thinking when they go to Jonathan Sperry's funeral, it would be really funny if you just heard his voice in the background saying, I am in agony.
Oh, God.
I am in ecstasy.
There's so much chocolate cake.
I guess the big secret of Jonathan Sperry is that his neighbor killed his wife.
Right.
And that he decided to forgive. And or it's kind of like psychological torture by Jonathan Sperry. To be sending these kids over to mow this guy's lawn for free without ever talking to him in person.
Yeah, it's terrorism through kindness. Like how when he's getting viciously bullied by that 12-year-old in the pizza place and he's like, I knew your dead father. He sort of does deploy this selective kindness terrorism that I think is really genius. I would love to incorporate more into my daily life.
He's actually put packets of grass killer on the lawnmower that the kid is using to mow the lawn.
Yeah.
But Mr. Sperry dead. Is the Bible study discontinued from here on?
Oh, heck no.
It is not.
Absolutely not. The film becomes a literal boys' Bible study. The boys still meet. Are they at his house?
They go to the graveyard.
They go to
That's the scene with all the cutoffs is they go to the graveyards together.
Yeah. It's the final scene. Him saying, listen to the tombstones.
Look around, guys. And don't be afraid. This is an important place to visit while you're still alive. And listen. I don't hear anything. Neither do I.
Yeah, this time Dustin is repeating Mr. Sperry's teachings, but now to a new group of boys. Listen, I am in agony. I don't actually think he says that the second time, but he's giving them the same speech.
So Dustin is like Paul, right? Mm-hmm. Carrying on Jesus's message, the Great Commission.
Yes.
Of gathering disciples and spreading the word.
Yes.
Very much so. And, so from there is essentially the ending of the plot. I will say, though, we have to address, before we give our final thoughts on the film, we get some great, one of the best cinematic storytelling devices, which is after the film, you just...
I love this.
I'm obsessed with when movies do this. I think we all are. After the film, just write a couple paragraphs about just like write your own fan fiction about what happened after the movie.
Yeah, it's so funny because the movie starts with a thing where it's like, this is not a true story.
Yes, it does. I love that.
But it's presented in the same format that a movie would put, like, this is a true story at the beginning. Then it ends with the like birth and death dates of Jonathan Sperry. And then the little like what happened to the characters afterwards. They're not real people.
Right.
Yeah. It was very like Wonder Years or no, Stand By Me. I actually would have preferred if they'd done it Stand By Me style though, where it's a voiceover instead of like the little written bit.
Yeah. It's like, who cares? They're not real.
I love that.
And everything that happens is like so perfect for all of them. They all become like Christian. They all
become Christian podcasters.
Well, one of them does become a Christian
yes, literally.
podcaster.
Well, wait, now Nick becomes a cop.
Right.
Yeah, he becomes a Christian cop.
The bully Nick becomes a Christian cop who has a ministry for troubled teens. Mark, which is one of the three friends, is a biology professor at a Christian college. They cross-reference.
He teaches
this
about
now.
creation.
Yes, it says that. He's a Christian biologist who lectures about creation. Albert, who's of the three boys, is like the sort of the goofier one who wears a hat. He now owns 3 Christian radio stations. I have in my notes, would have been a podcaster nowadays.
Yeah, that's what I wrote too.
100%.
Yes, listen, we are carrying the torch of the Christian radio station. I'm very pleased at this new medium and the new messaging that it allows. The bully Nick becomes a cop, as we said, and of course, Dustin, our main character, becomes a pastor. And, that's sort of hinted at by the fact that he just takes over the Bible study instinctively from Jonathan Sperry. Yeah, they all become Christian thought leaders. Like not only are they just Christians and citizens of the world, they're also like important like Christian thinkers and thought leaders.
All PragerU honorary graduates.
It was weird with those two, how the time jumped all over the place, because for Tanya, the crush who he left the non-love note to about reading her Bible more, it says 6 months later, Tanya became a Christian because she started reading her Bible. And then for Dustin, it says he's been a pastor for 15 years. And you're like,
yeah,
just arbitrary amounts of time for
Love
each
that.
of them.
I was very surprised that they didn't just have them get married.
Right.
Since like they could just do whatever they want. They
Right.
just have like perfect lives for the rest of their life.
That would have been too easy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they even had a little bit of restraint there. And let us not forget the final title of the movie. The 4 men meet every year at Jonathan's gravesite, ... to share some lemonade.
Yeah, and listen to people screaming in agony.
They get out a Ouija board.
And they talk to Jonathan Sperry. We've just wrapping up our, this is our first November episode, but well, I guess the one that came out on November 1st, technically, but we just did a block of a couple Christian horror films, so we are Ouija'd out. I'm comfortable with not seeing a Ouija board for another year after the month we spent analyzing Christian horror. I mean, they may as well. They're going there to listening to the tombstones, and they share some lemonade. This encounter with Jonathan Sperry was so important to their lives. They commemorate it every single year, and they drink lemonade. So just goes to show you the impact that one old man can have.
This movie, it kind of feels like somebody saw Mystic River and they were like, you know what? I can make this, but make it wholesome.
Right.
Like 4 grown men having this shared traumatic episode with some sort of event that happened in their childhood. But you know what? In this version, they're all Christian.
I don't know why I got such big Sandlot vibes out of this movie, but I absolutely I don't know if it was the casting and the characters or what, but I had like Sandlot in the back of my mind the whole time that this movie was happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can feel that.
Well, all right. So now that we've explicated the plot of the film, we unearthed the true secrets of Jonathan Sperry. Let's wrap up with some final thoughts and give our official Boys Bible Study rating. Snoopy, what did you think of this film?
I think that The Secrets of Jonathan Sperry was a joyous romp through the missioning of some young boys by a very, very, very old man. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I thought it was actually very wholesome and sweet. I thought the acting was good, the casting was good, the scenery that sort of left something to be desired. I was confused sometimes, but overall, it was a really great film, and I think I want to give it 5 muddy Bibles out of 5 muddy Bibles.
Oh, we didn't even mention that scene when the bullies attack Nick and throw his Bible in the mud.
Oof. I mean, is that the worst thing you can do to a man, or what? Either that or talk about his nap time. These are insults I would never leverage at another fellow traveler of this earth, but we see them done.
People in glass houses shouldn't make fun of others' nap times. That's all I'll say.
Well, I would say that, again, I really love this film. As I was saying earlier, like, this film was like absolutely, a seed that sprouted into us starting this podcast, one that I watched with Scott and Julian before we ever got started on this. And we were like, this movie is special. We would love to have some sort of platform to convey to others how special these films are. So I'm eternally grateful to the great Christiano brothers for that. And this film is highly recommended. I'm going to give this film 4 hot dogs per boy, which is, of course, a perfect score. Because, listen, if you have 20 to 25 young men in your house, then, be sure you give them the barbecue of their lifetimes.
I'm going to give this wonderful movie that really took me back to 70. And I'm going to give it 10 out of 10 horse images in Dustin's room. Did you all notice how much horse paraphernalia Dustin has in his room? He never talks about horses either.
Right. He's a horse boy.
He loves horses.
The elusive horse boy archetype.
We have the horse boys up front and the e-boys in the background every so often. I like this movie a lot. I think it's part of the joy is just sort of thinking of Jonathan Sperry in other ways than what he actually is. Like, and the way I see it is he's kind of like that demon guy from Death Note. In the way that they go to him with their problems with the bully, and then he just turns the bully into a Christian instead of, you write his name down in the Bible and he turns Christian instead of writing it down in the notebook and he dies. That being said, I will give this film on a scale of the lowest rating being a tree and the highest rating being a $5 bill. I will give this movie a tree and 3 out of 4 segments of the human centipede to reach the $5 bill, which unfortunately is my lowest rating of any of the movies that we have reviewed so far. But wait, out of nowhere comes the 4th segment, and we reach the $5 bill. It's a perfect movie, perfect score.
Ooh. Yeah, another fucking banger from the Christiano brothers, the absolute kings of cinema.
What else did they do?
Time Changer.
They did Time Changer, and then they did... did we ever do the one about the lady who gets the phone call and then gets hit by the car? The Appointment?
No, it sounds a lot like Dial Tone, but we've never done The Appointment.
That's their first one.
But I want to say thanks again to our special guest this week, Trans Regret Snoopy, for watching and discussing this film with us. It was great to have you tease out some of the scriptural elements. And once again, could you please say the name of your show and how people can find you and the show online?
Absolutely. The show is called Trans Regret Snoopy Presents the Bible. It's available on Apple Podcasts and on SoundCloud and nowhere else because I'm afraid of getting sued. So check it out, and thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun. I genuinely enjoyed the film, and I would love to have you, back on again at some point if you feel so inclined.
Oh, anytime. Truly, I had so much fun on your show. Yeah, I've been telling some of my friends have been like, "Oh, how can I find that show?" I'm like, just search Trans Regret Snoopy in Apple Podcasts. Nothing else will come up.
There's not a lot there. Yeah,
yeah, they will be the only show that comes up. check out episode 2 of her new show. I am on there. Spending an hour talking about the story of Jonathan and David, the definitely not gay, very good friends from the Bible. And on the Boys Bible Study side of things, we would like to, of course, remind you that we have a Patreon at patreon.com/Boys Bible Study. We do at least 2 bonus episodes every month, and we also do a live stream for patrons only. Actually, this episode, being that it's coming out on November 8th, we will have a live stream later today. It's not too late. If you're hearing this in the morning of November 8th, it is not too late to pledge $1 to our Patreon and join us for a surprise screening of, we usually do like 2 films. It's a really fun time. We're all talking in chat. So please check that out. Our outro music is Oh My God by Mary. Stream that song on Bandcamp and Spotify. On behalf of myself, Ash, my co-host Scott and Julian, our very special guest, Trans Regret Snoopy, we would like to say, peace be with you.
And also with you.
And Scott and Snoopy and Ash and Julian all lived on to be very successful podcasters, very rich and powerful, and nothing bad ever happened to them ever again because they watched Christian movies.
Amen.
Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I feel your love in me, it's coming from within. Oh my God, my devotion is so unwavering. Divine emotions when